So when you flip out the screen, it rotates, and I think it rotates, so there is 180 plus 90, 270. The LCD really has become such an important part of digital photography. Now, we presume that the viewfinder or the EVF on a mirrorless camera is the primary way of composing and setting up a shot. But in actual fact, there are so many photographers who use the LCD as their primary method. So I think it's important that we discuss the different types of photography, the different ways in which photographers use LCDs. Now, I don't have a setup where I've got an auto cue or notes in front of me. When I make these videos, I kind of just sit quietly for a while and kind of formulate, try and sort of see the way I shoot and sort of talk about it then. But in this instance, because I realized there's so many different types of photographers, I wanted to go online, go into YouTube and just see what other people are saying. The one thing that I picked up when I was watching these videos is that the flip out LCD has become a little bit of a sticky issue. I mean, it's not too controversial, but there are so many people who have said, well, listen, I really wanted the same LCD that's found in the XT4, why did they change it? And the one thing I noticed with some of the reviewers is that they were like, why would you even say that? The flippy screen does everything that the previous one does and more, like selfie. I think, to be quite honest, they haven't, at least for a second, tried to imagine that they're not the only photographer in the world or that everyone shoots like you. There's some real valid reasons as to why someone wouldn't go for a flippy screen. I, for one, am not going to stand here and tell people that they should like the flippy screen and that you can do everything with this flippy screen that you could do with the XT3 screen and more. Because if anyone has actually used the three LCDs, you'll know they are very different and they have different uses. It's not simply like, oh, this can turn in every direction, so it must be better than one that can only turn in 2 directions or 3 directions. It's not simply the case. In my previous XT4 video I mentioned durability as one of the sort of the features added to the XT4. And I also referenced the X Pro 3. Now, with Fujifilm, and I've been told this by Fujifilm, on the X Pro 3, one of the top ranking criteria, or at least features that they wanted to implement on the X Pro 3 was durability. They held that as an important aspect of that camera. And in doing so, the decision to implement the particular LCD they did for that camera played a part. So they wanted to go for an LCD that could fold away, protect the LCD. They also wanted something that was pretty simple. And for them, it was sufficient to have just an 180-degree rotating LCD and then folding away. I also mentioned that the XT4 type of flippy screen wouldn't work on the X Pro 3 from a durability perspective because there's more chance of it having issues or being damaged. Now, what I wasn't referring to was that this is somehow a weak flippy screen. From what I can see, it's a well-made flippy screen. So it has a high level of durability. But what I was talking about is that the chance of it being damaged because of the way it works and the way it folds out and its connection point makes perfect sense as to why they wouldn't use a screen like this on the X Pro 3 range. So I really did try and give it as much thought as possible as to how you would use this, where its benefits might be. Do things like video vlogging, for example, where you're doing selfie videos. That's not something I do. But that doesn't mean that there's millions of people that do that, and that's important to them. So when it comes to actually making a camera like this, I imagine Fujifilm has sort of criteria that they've got to sort of reach or thresholds that, so for example, some people have started to ask for a particular feature, but it's not enough yet to change that feature because remember, profit is the incentive. But once that voice gets loud enough, they go, okay, well, listen, we better implement it. And I imagine that the flippy screen, enough people have asked for it because the XT range has moved more into that video line where it's become one of the best hybrid cameras you can buy now. To me, it was a no-brainer that they put the flippy screen on. It makes perfect sense. I personally use a belt system. I use clips and my body's clip into the belt. I've got pouches for lenses and so on. And I've gone through all of them. I've gone through the straps that kind of go over you, that always spin and irritate you, and you've got cameras flicking around, and you've got two bodies hitting each other. And I've gone through the ones that are sort of more holster style, that kind of keep the cameras away, but still sort of get in the way when you're walking. And I've settled on the belt. Now, that's just a personal choice. Everyone's got their own way of shooting. And One of the benefits of it is that all the weight is on your hips. You don't have any restrictions on your upper body. And I don't go around on my portrait shoots with massive crews. You know, if I have one person, that's a lot helping me. So quite a lot of the time I'm involved in positioning of lights. I'm very much a hands-on on what's happening. And I like to have that freedom to move and pick up stuff and not worry about my gear. The reason why I do bring up the belt is that the LCD does have an impact on the way I shoot with the way my gear hangs off my belt. All right, so like for example, I'm covering an event where I've got to get the camera up high because I've got a lot of people and I've got a wide lens and I'm trying to capture action. Well, on the XT4, I would then open my screen and it's brilliant. You can rotate the screen down and you can get right underneath it, which is fantastic. All well and good, I bring the camera down and now the camera is sort of in this position. I've got to be pretty careful the way I bring it down, be aware of people around me. I mean, if you've been to some people who cover marsh pits, I mean, I do weddings and I do a lot of Jewish weddings, and the horrors that happen just as they enter the reception, I mean, it's like a marsh pit, basically, and I get involved in that. I don't stand on the side and get on a ladder and photograph. I'm one of the people in the horrors. I'm right in the face of people who've been thrown around and thrown in the air. So I got to be very aware, because if I turn with the camera this way and I hit someone going that way, well, this is not going to work well for the LCD when it's bending that way, all right? It could be in this position and you strike it that way, same result. You might be lowering it down and wanting to, in a hurry, put it into your belt clip to get the other camera up with a different focal length, and you haven't put the LCD away, and it strikes your body and again damages the LCD because you're doing it so fast, you're doing it in a hurry, you're doing it with a bit of pace because you're going to miss it, so you slam it down into the clip. Because with my belt, I know exactly where my clips are. I don't even have to look anymore. I hear the lock in, I know it's locked in, I move to the second and I'm gone. All right, so now I've got to learn. I've got to sort of have a muscle memory. It's up there, down. Down there, pick it up, down. Those are small things, but those do play a part in the decision making of an LCD or a camera in general. There's so many variations to a flippy screen, and that's its strong point. It's incredible. You know, when I was shooting 35mm sensor DSLRs, the screens could never fold. So I got really good at using a wide lens and not even looking at anything here, and just kind of sort of judging where everything was in the shot, and it worked out relatively well with some missed shots. But now you're getting sort of close to 100% bang on what you want because you can see it in the LCD, and that's a fantastic feature. So in those environments, maybe the X Pro 3 is a better camera. You know, you're able to fold down the screen all the way down at 180. You can shoot sort of waist level in that situation. You can get the camera over your head. Well, then people say, well, listen, it's 180. You can't shoot over your head. Of course you can. You just turn the camera upside down. I don't have the X Pro 3 with me. And you fire it like that, and you have the screen over here. So that camera shoots down and up, and it's far easier for that LCD to be put away, and there's less chance of it being smacked. But its weak point is that you can't go down to the floor and do a portrait from the floor. You might have a puddle of water on the road and you want to get a reflection of a building. But you can't just lower your hand down in a portrait and just sort of do what you can with this LCD. I mean, look how amazing that is. You know, I could even go, I can't step over there, but I need to get a little bit further away. I can turn it like this, go down, and get the shot like that. I mean, there's so many different ways of using this screen. It's incredible. Fujifilm going forward, I actually think they've given us a really good indication of what their sort of roadmap is. Now we have clear lines for each of the cameras that they manufacture, except for the XH1. The XH1 for me, I still haven't kind of got my head around, although there's a huge amount of people out there who love the XH1. With the XT4 being released and the features that it has, it's going to be really interesting to see what they come up with the XH2, what it's going to bring, because it can't be the same camera as the XT4, just in a different form. I don't think that's enough to make it a seller. So I'm really interested to see what they do there. But here we have at least the new cameras that have been released, including the XT3. You've got 3 different LCD styles. I'm hoping that the XT3 LCD remains somewhere in the mix, so that at least if the LCD is a very important thing for you as a photographer, you've got it on at least one of the bodies. If that's your primary sort of concern or want in a camera, I'd like to see them maintain that previous style of LCD somewhere in the range. I think that's important, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, why am I mentioning the XT3? I still think that the XT3 is a valid choice. And not only that, they are being reduced in price to obviously in expectation of the release of the XT4. The XT3 and the XT4 have the same image sensor, the same processor. I have heard though, and some of my ex-photographers have told me that in some situations they've noticed an improvement in image quality and in noise performance. That's going to be interesting and maybe something I can test going forward. I haven't yet seen it, but I haven't, shot with the camera to a large degree, so I can't make comments on that. If there is a difference, it's going to be slight. So for some people, maybe not having the in-body image stabilizer, not having a flippy screen, having still, at this point in technology, the best performing APS-C size sensor, why not look at the XT3? Why not take the advantage of the good price? If those other features are needed, that's a valid decision to make. Then you have the XT4. You've got the release of arguably one of the best hybrid cameras on the market now. It has everything that a videographer needs. So now I think that the tables are kind of evenly balanced. I think this is very much a photographer's camera as well as a videographer's camera. It's a true hybrid. It's got an LCD that can offer you, I believe, sort of 90% of what photographers need and probably 100% of what videographers need. So I think there's a good balance. I really do. I think that across the line here, we have our choices. In the XT4 lockdown shoot that I did in the garden, I really pushed myself to use the LCD. It doesn't come naturally to me. I'm a viewfinder shooter. Very, very small percentage of the stuff that I do out there, whether I'm holding the camera up or down, like I discussed earlier, that I actually use on a day-to-day basis. Very, very small percentage. I love the fact that there's that connection you have with the image when you're in the viewfinder. It's light sealed. You're in there, you feel connected. Not only are you sort of more engaged with the image, in my opinion, you're seeing the finer details. Like if you're not a histogram user, if you haven't got time to use a histogram, you can see through the preview, which is the benefit of a mirrorless camera, sort of where you're clipping your highlights and your shadows are sort of getting out of hand and those different aspects. And not only that, you're seeing depth of field. So I find like with an LCD holding it out like this, yeah, you can see your image and it's a handy way to shoot, and it may be a bit more like using a phone and for some people very comfortable. But I'm not convinced, even with good eyesight, that you can pick up on those finer things by holding the camera like this. And I think that's the benefit of a viewfinder. So I had the screen like this. The sun was coming over my shoulder from this side and was hitting the screen. I was getting this terrible glare. So I was kind of at the start moving my body to try to get rid of the glare. Now on any of the other viewfinders that are out there that just have the three sort of positions, that's it. Where on this one, I just went, oh, why don't I just do this? And I just turned the viewfinder ever so slightly like this, and the glare was gone and I could carry on shooting. I was like, wow, that's so simple, but played a big part in what I was doing on that shoot. I found that, and I don't use touchscreen ever. I don't really go back and review my images. I don't zoom in on images to check. The type of work that I do, I got to move quickly and I just got to keep going. And I don't like taking steps back because it affects me going forward. My focus is here. I put whatever I think of the last shots, whether I like them or not, I kind of compare it to golf. The quicker you forget about the bad shot and move forward, the better you play. So I just find that in photography. I don't harp on or I don't think about what I've done before. So I don't play back images. I don't really look at things. But here with the shoot, I actually zoomed in and I tapped and I looked, and it was really, really cool. It was nice. It was like being on my cell phone. And I think there's also a connection here with maybe a younger crowd as well, that they can relate to this more than I can. And I appreciate that. And I really do. I think it's a fantastic feature for many. I was able to touch focus, and occasionally I tried that as well. Very responsive. Another very important aspect as well, which I hadn't kind of given thought to, is when you fold these out, they're not always in this position. As I said now with the glares, that I turned it slightly off. I had a slight turn on it. How firm is that rotation? As in, if you're using the touchscreen, if it wasn't firm, or even this action of going down, how firm is it? When you push the touchscreen, the screen just keeps going down, or it keeps turning. And it's incredibly firm. You really can put a lot of pressure on it. Yeah, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that screen and it isn't moving down. So if you're doing a lot of action with that screen, you tap focusing, you're doing video, you don't have to worry about it moving. It's nice and firm all the way, and it's got a nice beautiful click at the end as well. So when it gets close to it, it actually just sucks in and holds there. Then talking about the LCD, when it's folded away, you have the option of having your LCD out, which is found on most cameras, or tucking it away. So for me, personally, Because I don't really use the LCD, I think this is great. Just like the X Pro, I could appreciate it putting it away. Again, if I do a playback, I do the playback in my viewfinder. So I don't have it, because you can set up the Fujifilm camera. So as soon as you take a photograph, you can have however many seconds of that image playback and then disappear. So some people like it to keep giving them the preview. I just find that too distracting. So for me, I physically got to push the playback button to see it. And that's the way I review my images if I have to. So this feature of hiding it away until I need it, I think is brilliant. And I think it's a real plus to flippy screens. But you also get it on the X Pro with the 180-degree screen that also folds away. So I think both those features on both those cameras are brilliant. One thing I can say is I think they should have, and I don't know why they've chosen this, this material, this surface on the back of the screen. They really should have made it more like the grip. I don't know if they felt that it would start to peel, or they couldn't guarantee that it would stay on because of the amount of sort of use of the screen or the type of way of grabbing it. I don't know. But they've gone with like a plasticky sort of textured, they've tried to match it, but you can see when you hold it, it's got more of a shiny plastic look. And then the material on the actual grip and around the back of the camera is more of a sort of leatherette material. So that would have been nice if they continued that on, but really in the bigger scheme of things, it's not really a big deal. And also when you hold it up like this, it's so flash, so well protected. Like if you're putting it down, there's a little bump here that by the grip here on the back of the camera, and then obviously you've got your viewfinder. When you put the camera down on a flat surface like that, no part of it touches the floor, like on the surface. So even if I have my screen out, I have it the other way around and I put it down. When I turn that down and I put it down on something, the screen doesn't touch anything. Obviously, if you've got a rough surface and things are sticking out, it will. So it's really, really flash. When I look down the body, it's flasher than the XT3. Screen folds out and does 270 degrees. So it doesn't do a 3 or just continuously turn all the way around. And I presume it's got something to do with the connection. And I'm always amazed about these connections, how all the things that are required to run the touchscreen and the actual image itself and all the information as communication with the body is all going through the small connection. It's amazing technology. So yeah, as I said before, you can look up on shots, you can look down on shots, you can have any angle in between, and you can go full selfie on the other side for those of you doing photos of yourself or video of yourself. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't have the X Pro 3 with me, so I need you to use your imagination here. But you can also check out my review. I'll leave a link at the end of this video. But the screen does a 180, so it's permanently closed, and you've got to open it 180. So you can shoot sort of up, sort of blow up on the camera by using the shutter button below, or you can shoot it here. And I think one of the real key features for street photographers in the X Pro 3 is you do waist level shooting. What waist level shooting gives you is that option, so you could pretend, for example, to be working on your camera. You've got into a situation where you're sitting down and you're standing and something's about to happen to you, because a lot of street photographers compose and then wait for something to happen, or they'll find someone on a bench or something like that that's static, but they've got to shoot it in a way that the person doesn't know that they're shooting it. So you could have it down like this and you could be fiddling with it and pretend that you know, looking at it, and instinctively people don't think that you're taking photographs of them. But in matter of fact, at the back of the camera, it's folded down at 90 degrees and you're doing like a waist level shot of it and you're getting amazing shots. So now you're on the street and you've got the XT4 and you want to do the same type of shot that you got on the X Pro 3. Well, you fold the screen out and you do the waist level shot, but now the whole screen's to the side. So if anyone's standing like this, the person knows that you're taking your photograph. And that just might mean the difference between getting the shot and not getting the shot. Now, of course, you could bring that in like this, and I have no problem, even though my image is not square to what I'm seeing, I can still take the shot. I mean, it doesn't take too much intelligence to be able to frame it, even though that the LCD is skew. But that might be enough for them to see that the LCD is open and you're actually taking photographs of them. So that's something to bear in mind. For those of you looking at the XT4, I know there's many of you, because of the decision made on the LCD, are still preferring the XT3's LCD. And for some people, it's good reason. I mean, here, for example, it offers you the waist level shot, and it offers you the camera above the head shot. All right? And it offers you the portrait of that same, the portrait orientation in both going down sort of below with the camera and raising the camera up. It offers you both that. But on the street, it offers you the ability to do that hidden LCD shot that the X Pro 3 offers you. So clearly, when it comes to purchasing the camera, the LCD plays a massive part in that decision making. Even me, who doesn't use the LCD, the fact that it can fold away and not be part of the shot and only there when I need it, plays a part. I think about cameras a lot. So much so that like sometimes when I'm flying, even like whether overseas or locally, and I'm not editing on the flight, I've got my iPad up and I'm drawing cameras. I'm drawing designs of cameras, ideas, And by doing this and messing around a bit and giving some thought to the different features, I think that camera manufacturers have missed something. They've missed the opportunity to allow the consumer to customize the camera. And I mean, I've spoken about this to some degree on the X Pro 3 video, but like just the ability for us to program the camera to a higher degree, maybe implement the cell phone more with the camera, allow us to limit the functions that we need to a greater degree, create more function buttons, these different things. I think that we're kind of moving in the right direction, but we need to do a little bit more. But the one thing I'd love to see, and in particular with something like an LCD, is that when we purchase the camera, we don't get an LCD with the camera at all. So we get a camera that's probably just a little bit slighter in its profile. And then we get to choose what LCD we want for the type of photography we do. And that can be anything from a rotating to just a flat to 180 to even those eye cups that viewfinders, videographers use as viewfinders. Why not? You know, here you have a little opening on the body that's got maybe a flap or a door, so it's always closed, and you just open it up, click it in, makes a solid connection, so the LCD is a very durable sort of addition to the camera, and then you get what you want. And in this way, I believe a company like Fujifilm could increase their profits without, you know, see here they kind of got this, well, we're going to lose 20% of those people who are upset about the change, but we're going to gain so much more. By customizing the camera, you allow everyone to have a say in the way they want to set up the camera. So you heard it here first. Any manufacturer goes down this path, my idea, at the very least I want to be invited to your launch and have some champagne, if you don't mind. Anything to get me out of my quarantine. So I didn't get great news, you know, obviously with South Africa sort of easing off on the lockdown protocol, we've been put into level or stages, and I've been put into level 1 as a photographer, not really essential, and all functions and events are generally cancelled. So the group that I'm in, group of people, we enter back into society last. So I'm just going to keep pushing on to these videos. So the support that I get on these videos, which I really do appreciate, is massive. It helps me push on and make more. So please do like this if it's a benefit to you, or go check out my channel. And if you like what you see in general, please do subscribe. It just helps me to continue to push on. Thanks so much, and God bless.